Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the main screen of the UES Discovery. This was humanity's first trip beyond their solar system using the new quantum drive. Jake felt excited but nervous. He had been chosen to lead this mission because of his calm nature and quick thinking. "All systems ready, Captain," said Lisa Campbell from her position at the navigation station. She was the best pilot Earth had ever trained. Her fingers moved across the control panel with perfect skill. "Engine status report," Jake called out. Tony Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station. "Quantum drive is running smooth, Captain. All power levels are normal. We are ready to make the jump." Dr. Amy Foster checked her science equipment one more time. She was hoping to find new forms of life on this journey. "All sensors are working perfectly. We should be able to detect anything interesting out there." Jake took a deep breath. "All right. Everyone, this is it. We are about to make history. Lisa, take us to our target location." Lisa pressed the activation button. The quantum drive began to hum with power. The stars on the screen started to blur and stretch. Then something went wrong. Warning lights flashed red all over the bridge. The ship shook violently. Sparks flew from several control panels. "What's happening?" Jake shouted over the noise. "The quantum field is unstable," Tony yelled back. "Something is causing a cascade failure." The ship spun wildly through space. Jake gripped his chair tightly as the crew fought to control their vessel. The quantum drive was creating a massive energy buildup that threatened to tear the ship apart. "I'm trying to shut it down." Tony's hands flew over his controls. "But the system won't respond." Suddenly, a bright flash filled the bridge. Jake felt like he was being pulled in all directions at once. Then everything went quiet. Jake opened his eyes slowly. The warning lights had stopped flashing. The ship was no longer shaking. But when he looked at the main screen, his heart nearly stopped. They were surrounded by dozens of strange ships. These vessels looked nothing like human technology. They were made of what appeared to be living crystal, glowing with soft blue light. Each ship was at least 3 times larger than the Discovery. "Lisa, where are we?" Jake asked quietly. Lisa stared at her instruments with wide eyes. "Captain, according to our navigation system, we are nowhere near where we should be. We are in completely unknown space." One of the crystal ships moved closer to the Discovery. Jake could see it was scanning them with beams of colored light. "Amy, are you picking up any signals?" Jake asked. Dr. Foster worked quickly at her station. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple communication attempts. They're using frequencies and patterns I've never seen before. It's definitely not human technology." A new voice suddenly filled the bridge. It spoke in strange, musical tones that hurt. "To listen to," the universal translator tried to make sense of the words but could only produce broken phrases. "Unknown vessel. Identify. Purpose. Threat level." Jake stood up slowly. He knew this was the most important moment in human history. "Lisa, are our communication systems working?" "Yes, Captain, but I don't think they understand us any better than we understand them." The crystal ships began to form a circle around the Discovery. Jake realized they were being surrounded, possibly captured. "Dr. Foster called out excitedly. "Captain, my translation program is starting to learn their language. I'm picking up more clear words now." The alien voice came through the speakers again, slightly clearer this time. "Strange metal ship. How did you arrive? Your technology is unknown. State your intentions." Jake walked to the communication station. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship Discovery. We come in peace. Our arrival here was an accident." There was a long silence. Then the alien voice returned, speaking more clearly. "Earth, this word is unknown. You claim accident, but your vessel uses forbidden space-bending technology. You will be taken for examination." "Captain," Lisa whispered, "their ships are moving into formation around us. I think they plan to escort us somewhere." Jake nodded. He knew they had no choice but to cooperate. The Discovery was completely outmatched by the alien fleet. "Amy, keep working on that translator. Tony, make sure all our systems are ready. We might need them." Dr. Foster looked up from her work with concern. "Captain, I'm also detecting something else." There are massive energy readings coming from the edge of this star system. Something very large is moving through space toward this area. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of energy readings? I don't know, but they're unlike anything in our databases. The patterns are similar to what our deep space monitoring stations detected near Proxima Centauri, but much stronger. The largest crystal ship moved directly in front of the Discovery. The alien voice spoke again. You will follow us to Nexus Prime. Any attempt to flee will result in your destruction. Jake looked at his crew. They were all scared but ready to face whatever came next. Understood. We will follow. As the alien fleet began to move, Jake wondered what they had gotten themselves into. The Discovery was being taken to meet an alien civilization that was clearly far more advanced than humanity. But more troubling were those energy readings Amy had detected. Something told him that their accidental arrival might be connected to a much larger and more dangerous situation. The crystal ships guided them through space toward an unknown destination. Jake knew that everything that happened next would determine the future of the human race. The journey to Nexus Prime took 3 days. Jake and his crew spent the time studying their escorts and trying to learn more about the alien civilization they had encountered. Dr. Foster worked constantly on improving the translation system, while Tony examined the strange energy signatures from the crystal ships. When Nexus Prime finally appeared on their screens, the entire crew fell silent. The station was enormous, easily the size of Earth's moon. It was built in the shape of a giant ring spinning slowly in space. Thousands of ships of different designs moved around it like busy insects. Captain, Lisa said quietly, I'm reading at least 50 different ship types. These aren't all from the same species. Jake studied the display. Amy, what are you seeing on the lifeform scanners? Dr. Foster looked amazed. Multiple different biological signatures, Captain. This station has beings from dozens of different worlds living and working together. The Discovery was guided to a docking bay inside the massive station. As they landed, Jake could see alien beings through the viewports. Some looked like the crystal creatures from the ships, but others were completely different. There were tall, thin beings with multiple arms, short, furry creatures, and things that seemed to be made of living metal. Remember, everyone, Jake said as they prepared to leave the ship. We represent all of humanity here. Stay calm, be respectful, and follow my lead. The docking bay doors opened and a group of aliens approached. The leader was clearly one of the crystal beings, standing about 7 feet tall with a body that seemed to be made of blue and white crystal that pulsed with inner light. Dr. Foster's translator crackled to life. Welcome to Nexus Prime. I am Admiral Kethvar. You will come with us to meet the High Chancellor. Jake stepped forward. Thank you, Admiral. I am Captain Jake Morrison. These are my officers Lisa Campbell, Tony Rodriguez, and Dr. Amy Foster. The Admiral's crystal body pulsed brighter for a moment. Your species is unknown to us. In 3,000 years of hegemony rule, no new spacefaring race has been discovered. This is most unusual. As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake marveled at the technology around them. The walls seemed to be alive, pulsing with soft light. The air felt clean and fresh despite being artificial. Beings from many different species moved past them, some stopping to stare at the strange new visitors. Admiral, Dr. Foster said, may I ask how many species are part of your hegemony? 47 member species across 12,000 star systems, the Admiral replied, all united under Zephyrian guidance for the good of galactic civilization. They entered a massive chamber at the station's center. The room was filled with floating platforms, each one holding representatives from different species. At the center sat the most impressive being Jake had ever seen. High Chancellor Velnara was clearly ancient, even by alien standards. Her crystal body was larger than the Admiral's, and it glowed with deep purple light. When she spoke, her voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. So these are the humans who have violated our border zones with their primitive technology. Jake felt anger rise in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. High Chancellor, our presence here was accidental. We meant no harm or disrespect. Accidental? Another alien stepped forward. This one looked like a tall plant with moving vines for arms. I am Chief Science Advisor Quintal. Your quantum drive technology operates on principles we abandoned centuries ago as too dangerous. How did such a young species develop such reckless methods? Dr. Foster spoke up. We developed our quantum drive through independent research. We had no knowledge of your civilization or your technology. The Chancellor's glow dimmed slightly. Independent development of faster-than-light travel? This should be impossible. All member species received such technology from us after proving their worthiness. Jake realized this was his chance to make a good impression. High Chancellor, humanity has always been a species that learns by trying new things even when they seem dangerous. Sometimes this leads to discoveries that others might miss. Lisa had been studying a large display showing the galaxy. Captain, may I ask about something I see on your star charts? Quintal followed her gaze. What do you wish to know? There are large areas marked as restricted zones near the galactic edge. What are those regions? The chamber fell completely silent. Jake could see that the aliens were uncomfortable with the question. The Chancellor finally spoke, her voice much quieter than before. Those are areas that have been quarantined for the safety of all civilized species. They contain ancient threats that must not be disturbed. Tony looked up from his tablet where he had been recording energy readings. Ancient threats? What kind of threats? Admiral Kethvar stepped forward. Beings of pure destructive energy that consume entire star systems. Our ancestors barely survived their first encounter with these entities. We retreated to the inner galaxy and established the quarantine zones as protection. Jake felt his blood turn cold. How long ago was this? Nearly 2,000 years, the Chancellor replied. Dr. Foster checked her own readings. Captain, those energy signatures we detected during our arrival, and the ones our deep space stations recorded near Earth, the patterns match what I'm seeing in their historical data. The aliens looked confused. Quintal spoke first. You have detected energy signatures? What kind of signatures? Jake made a decision that would change everything. High Chancellor, I believe we need to share some important information with you. For the past 5 years, Earth's monitoring stations have been detecting massive energy disturbances from the direction of the galactic edge. They've been getting stronger and moving closer. The Chancellor's crystal body began to pulse rapidly. Show us this data. Dr. Foster connected her tablet to the chamber's display system. The screen filled with charts and readings from Earth's deep space monitoring network. The alien studied the data with growing alarm. Quintal's plant-like body began to shake. These readings, they show the restricted zones have been breached. The quarantine has failed. Jake looked around the chamber at the frightened faces of dozens of alien species. High Chancellor, I believe our accidental arrival here may not be a coincidence. The energy disturbances we detected are moving through space in the direction of our solar system. Earth may be directly in the path of whatever you've been hiding from. The Chancellor stood slowly, her ancient form towering over everyone else. If this data is accurate, then the Void Harbingers have returned. And if they are moving toward your world, then the entire galaxy is in danger. Jake realized that humanity's first contact with alien life had just become something much more serious. They weren't just explorers anymore. They might be the early warning system for a threat that could destroy every living thing in the galaxy. The Chancellor's voice filled the chamber. Captain Morrison, I believe it is time we discussed an alliance. Jake requested a private meeting with High Chancellor Velnara and her closest advisors. In a smaller chamber deep within Nexus Prime, he prepared to share humanity's most classified information. Dr. Foster had prepared detailed reports of everything Earth's deep space monitoring network had recorded over the past 5 years. High Chancellor, Jake began, what I'm about to show you has been kept secret from most of humanity. Our governments didn't want to cause panic until we understood what we were seeing. The Chancellor's crystal body pulsed with interest. Show us, Captain Morrison. Dr. Foster activated her presentation. The chamber's walls came alive with images and data from Earth's monitoring stations. 5 years ago, our deep space sensors began detecting massive quantum disturbances from the direction you call the restricted zones. At first, we thought they were natural phenomena, maybe colliding black holes or dying stars. Chief Science Advisor Quintal studied the data carefully. These energy patterns are enormous. They dwarf anything in our scientific databases. The disturbances have been growing stronger and more frequent, Dr. Foster continued. But more importantly, they show clear signs of intelligent direction. These aren't random events. Something is controlling them. Admiral Kethvar moved closer to examine the readings. The energy signatures match historical records of Void Harbinger activity, but the scale is much larger than anything our ancestors recorded. Jake leaned forward. There's something else. The disturbances are moving. Our calculations show they're heading directly toward the inner galaxy, passing through the area where Earth is located. The Chancellor was quiet for a long moment. Finally, she spoke to Quintal. Access the sealed archives, authorization level Omega. The plant-like scientist hesitated. High Chancellor, those archives have been sealed for 2,000 years. The knowledge they contain was deemed too dangerous to preserve. The situation has changed, the Chancellor replied firmly. Access them now. Quintal's vine-like arms moved over a control panel that materialized from the floor. Ancient symbols appeared on the walls, pulsing with deep red light. The sealed archives contain the complete records of the Harbinger Wars, the Chancellor explained to Jake. Our ancestors fought these entities for nearly a century before finding a way to drive them back. Images began to appear on the walls. Jake and his crew watched in horror as the recordings showed massive dark shapes moving through space, consuming entire star systems. Planets were drained of all energy and left as lifeless husks. Entire civilizations vanished in moments. The Void Harbingers are beings of pure destructive energy, Quintal explained as the images continued. They consume all forms of life and energy they encounter. Our ancestors called them Harbingers because they appeared to be fleeing from something even worse. Dr. Foster gasped. Fleeing? You mean they're running away from something? That was the theory, the Chancellor replied. But no evidence of what they might be fleeing from was ever found. After we drove them back to the galactic edge, we established the quarantine zones and hoped they would never return. Lisa studied the movement, patterns shown in the ancient records. Captain, look at these paths. The Harbingers move in straight lines, consuming everything in their way. If they're following the same patterns now. Jake felt sick as he realized what she meant. They'll pass directly through human space before reaching hegemony territory. Earth isn't just in danger, we're the canary in the coal mine. Admiral Kethvar's crystal body flickered with alarm. Your primitive monitoring systems detected them before our advanced sensors. How is this possible? Tony looked up from studying the technical data. I think I know why. Your sensor networks are designed to monitor known space, looking inward. At your empire, humanity's sensors were built to look outward into the unknown. We've been watching the dark spaces between stars that you ignore. The Chancellor stood and began pacing around the chamber. If the Harbingers are indeed returning, and if they're moving toward your world first, then humanity represents both an opportunity and a problem. Jake didn't like the sound of that. What do you mean? Your species could serve as an early warning system for the rest of the galaxy, Quintal explained. But your quantum drive technology and your detection methods prove you have capabilities we lack. You might be valuable allies. Or, the Chancellor added grimly, you might draw the Harbingers directly to us when they consume your world and continue inward. Jake stood up, feeling anger building inside him. You're talking about abandoning 4 billion human beings to save yourselves? It would be a practical decision, Admiral Kethvar said coldly. 47 civilizations across 12,000. Worlds versus one primitive species on a single planet. Dr. Foster stepped forward. But you're missing something important. Our primitive technology detected the Harbingers when your advanced systems couldn't. Our quantum drive creates interference patterns that might disrupt their energy absorption. Humanity isn't just another victim, we're a potential weapon. The room fell silent as the aliens considered this possibility. Jake saw his chance. High Chancellor, I propose an alliance. Humanity and the Zephyrian hegemony working together against this threat. Your advanced technology combined with human innovation and our unique detection capabilities. The Hegemony Council would never, Approve such an alliance, Quintal said. Humans are too young, too unpredictable. Many species will argue for abandoning the outer systems and retreating further inward. The Chancellor's glow dimmed as she considered the options. Captain Morrison, even if I were to support such an alliance, you would need to prove that humanity can contribute more than just early warning of our doom. What would it take to convince them? Jake asked. Admiral Kethvar studied the ancient records still displayed on the walls. The archives show that the Harbingers send scout probes ahead of their main force. These probes are smaller but still incredibly dangerous. If your species could somehow capture or destroy a scout probe, it would prove your military worth. Jake felt a chill run through him. And if such a probe is heading toward Earth, then your world will be the testing ground for humanity's survival. The Chancellor replied, We will monitor the situation. If you succeed, we will consider a full alliance. If you fail, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Jake understood perfectly. Humanity would face this threat alone, and if they lost, the hegemony would abandon them to their fate. Dr. Foster checked her data again. Captain, based on the energy signature movements, I estimate we have perhaps 6 months before the first probe reaches Earth's solar system. Jake looked at his crew, seeing determination in their faces despite the overwhelming odds. High Chancellor, we need to return to Earth immediately. Humanity needs to prepare for what's coming. The Chancellor nodded slowly. We will provide you with what technical data we can share. But remember, Captain Morrison, the fate of both our civilizations may depend on how well humanity performs in the coming battle. As they prepared to leave Nexus Prime, Jake realized that their accidental journey had changed everything. Humanity was no longer alone in the universe, but they were also facing a threat beyond imagination. The next few months would determine whether the human race would join the galactic community as allies or disappear forever into the darkness. The combined human and Zephyrian fleet gathered at the edge of Earth's solar system was the largest military force in recorded galactic history. Jake stood on the bridge of the Discovery, now serving as the flagship for humanity's contribution to the Alliance. Around them, hundreds of crystal ships from the hegemony formed battle lines alongside Earth's hastily constructed defense vessels. High Chancellor Velnara's image appeared on the main screen. Captain Morrison, our long-range sensors show the main Harbinger force will arrive in 6 hours. The entity we face contains at least 50 World Killer-class vessels. Jake studied the tactical display showing the approaching enemy. Each Harbinger ship was the size of a small moon, dwarfing even the largest Zephyrian vessels. High Chancellor, are you certain our combined strategy will work? Admiral Kethvar joined the conversation from his flagship. Captain, traditional. Zephyrian tactics have failed against the Harbingers for 2,000 years. We must trust in your species' unconventional approach. The plan they had developed combined human guerrilla tactics with Zephyrian technological superiority. Small, human ships equipped with quantum interference generators would create dead zones in the Harbinger energy fields. The larger Zephyrian vessels would then strike with their most powerful weapons, while the enemy's defenses were disrupted. Dr. Foster had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Captain, I've been analyzing the patterns in the Harbinger advance. Something bothers me about their behavior. What do you mean? Jake asked. They're not acting like predators hunting for food. Their movement patterns suggest they're fleeing from something, just like the ancient archives indicated. I think they're as desperate as we are. Tony looked up from his engineering station. If they're running from something worse, what happens if we destroy them? Do we leave ourselves vulnerable to whatever they're afraid of? Before Jake could respond, alerts began sounding throughout the fleet. The Harbinger force had arrived. Jake watched in horror as the dark shapes materialized at the system's edge. The enemy vessels were even larger than the sensors had indicated. Tendrils of pure destructive energy reached out from them, draining power from asteroids and space debris as they advanced. All ships, assume attack positions, Jake ordered over the fleet communication system. Remember, we only get one chance at this. The Harbinger fleet moved toward Earth in a steady formation, completely ignoring the Allied fleet. They seemed focused entirely on reaching the planet and its billions of inhabitants. They're not even considering us a threat, Lisa observed. From her navigation station, Jake realized this might be an advantage. All human vessels begin quantum pulse sequence. Let's see if we can get their attention. The Discovery and 30 smaller human ships began generating the interference patterns that had worked against the scout probe. Immediately, the Harbinger formation began to waver, as their energy absorption systems were disrupted. The largest, Harbinger vessel turned toward the human ships, extending massive energy tendrils that could drain a ship in seconds. But instead of retreating, Jake ordered his fleet to move closer. "Captain, that's suicide," Admiral HFY called out over the communication system. "Trust me," Jake replied. "Tony, are the containment systems ready?" Tony had been working on a revolutionary new weapon based on combining human quantum manipulation with Zephyrian energy control technology. Instead of trying to destroy the Harbingers, they planned to trap them. "Containment generators are online and ready, Captain." The Harbinger vessel reached out for the Discovery with a tendril large enough to engulf the entire ship. At the last moment, Jake gave the order. "Activate containment field." A bubble of twisted space-time formed around the Harbinger's tendril, trapping it in a pocket dimension where it could exist without consuming normal matter. The alien entity pulled back in what looked like surprise. "It worked," Dr. Foster called out excitedly. "The containment field is holding stable." But their success was short-lived. The other Harbinger vessels began to pulse with increased energy, and Jake realized they were communicating with each other. Admiral HFY's voice came through urgently. "Captain Morrison, something is wrong. The Harbingers are not responding as expected. They appear to be trying to communicate." Dr. Foster worked frantically at her station. "Captain, I'm picking up complex signal patterns from the lead Harbinger vessel. It's not random destruction energy. It's structured communication." Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Open a communication channel. Let's see what they want to tell us." The bridge filled with sounds unlike anything they had ever heard. Deep resonant tones that seemed to come from the fabric of space itself. Dr. Foster's universal translator struggled with the alien language, but slowly began to produce words. "Warning. Greater darkness comes. We flee, as you must flee. Death follows us." Jake felt his blood turn cold. "They're trying to warn us about something." The Harbinger communication continued. "Ancient enemy wakes, consumes all realities. We seek new universe to escape. Your interference traps us here." Dr. Foster looked up with wide eyes. "Captain, they're not invading. They're refugees, and our containment fields are preventing them from escaping whatever is chasing them." Before Jake could respond, alarms began sounding throughout both fleets. Long-range sensors were detecting something new approaching from beyond the galactic edge. High Chancellor Velnara's image appeared on the screen, her crystal form pulsing with fear. "Captain Morrison, our deepest space sensors have detected massive reality distortions approaching from outside the galaxy. Whatever the Harbingers are fleeing from is almost here." Jake realized they had been fighting the wrong enemy. "Release the containment fields," he ordered. "All ships, stand down from attack positions." The trapped Harbingers immediately began to flee toward the opposite edge of the galaxy. But Jake could see they wouldn't make it in time. The reality distortions were moving faster than even the Harbingers' incredible speed. "High Chancellor," Jake called out, "do your people have any technology that could help them escape?" "Captain," Admiral HFY responded, "you're proposing we help the entities that were about to consume your world?" Dr. Foster was studying the approaching distortions. "Captain, if the Harbingers are consumed by this new threat, we'll be facing it with no warning of what it can do. They might be our only source of information about the true enemy." Jake made the most important decision of his life. "All ships, form protective formation around the Harbinger fleet. We're going to help them escape." Tony worked frantically to modify their quantum drives. "Captain, if we create a massive space-time distortion, we might be able to open a passage to another part of the galaxy where they can hide." The combined human and Zephyrian fleet moved to surround the fleeing Harbingers. As the reality distortions approached, Jake could see tears forming in the fabric of space itself. Whatever was causing them was beyond anything in known physics. "All ships synchronize quantum pulse on my mark," Jake ordered. We're going to tear open space-time itself." The entire fleet activated their drives simultaneously. The resulting distortion created a massive tunnel through space that led to the far side of the galaxy. The Harbinger vessels fled through the opening just as the reality distortions reached Earth's solar system. Jake watched as the unknown threat passed through their location without even seeming to notice them. Whatever it was focused entirely on following the Harbingers. As the immediate danger passed, Jake realized that humanity and the Zephyrian hegemony had just faced their first test as allies. They had chosen to show mercy to former enemies and help them escape a greater threat. High Chancellor Velnara's image reappeared on the screen. "Captain Morrison, the Galactic Council has voted unanimously. Humanity will be offered full membership in the hegemony, with Earth serving as the headquarters for our new Galactic Defense Initiative." Jake looked around at his crew, seeing pride and relief in their faces. "High Chancellor, humanity accepts this honor, but I suspect our real challenges are just beginning." Dr. Foster was still studying the readings from the reality distortions. "Captain, whatever that was, it's still out there, and now it knows we exist." Jake nodded grimly. The Discovery had become the flagship of a new alliance between species, but they would need all their combined strength for the battles to come. Humanity had proven its worth as defenders of civilized space, but the greatest threats were still waiting in the darkness between the stars. The Discovery raced back toward Earth, carrying the most important information in human history. Jake had spent the journey working with his crew to develop a plan for humanity's survival. The Zephyrian technical data provided by High Chancellor Velnara filled their computers with information about the Void Harbingers, but it also revealed how difficult the coming battle would be. Tony worked day and night with the Zephyrian technical specifications. "Captain, I've been studying their energy absorption patterns. The Harbingers literally eat the energy from any weapon fired at them. Conventional attacks just make them stronger." Dr. Foster had been analyzing the biological data. "But I've found something interesting. The Harbingers seem to follow predictable hunting patterns. They target the largest energy sources first, then work their way down to smaller ones." "That gives me an idea," Lisa said, looking up from the navigation charts. "Human settlements are much smaller and more spread out than typical alien worlds. We might be harder targets for them to find and destroy efficiently." Jake studied the tactical information they had gathered. "The Zephyrians think in terms of massive fleets and overwhelming firepower. But humans have always been better at guerrilla warfare. We use speed, misdirection, and hit-and-run tactics." When they finally reached Earth, Jake found that humanity's governments had been busy. The secret monitoring data had been shared with military leaders worldwide, and preparations were already underway. But Jake knew they needed to do more than just prepare defenses. 2 months after their return, the first Harbinger scout probe entered the outer solar system. It was smaller than the massive entities described in the Zephyrian archives, but still larger than any human ship ever built. The probe moved steadily toward the inner planets, scanning everything in its path. Jake stood in the command center of the newly built Earth Defense Station, watching the probe's approach on the main screen. Representatives from every major nation on Earth were present, along with Admiral Susan Parker, the newly appointed head of Earth's United Defense Forces. "The probe will reach Mars orbit in 6 hours," Admiral Parker reported. "All defensive platforms are ready, but based on the Zephyrian data, conventional weapons will be useless." Jake had spent weeks developing a plan with Tony and the Earth's best engineers. "Admiral, we're not going to use conventional weapons. We're going to use our quantum drive technology against it." Dr. Foster explained their strategy to the assembled leaders. "Tony has modified several smaller ships with quantum drive interference generators. Instead of trying to destroy the probe, we're going to confuse its energy absorption systems." The plan was risky. The Discovery and 3 modified fighters would approach the probe using irregular quantum pulses that should make them harder to detect. Once close enough, they would activate the interference generators to create dead zones where the probe's energy absorption would fail. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Parker said, "this probe is just a scout. Are you sure we should risk revealing our capabilities for such a small target?" Jake understood her concern, But he also knew this was their only chance to prove humanity's worth to the Zephyrian hegemony. Admiral, we have observers from Nexus Prime monitoring this encounter. If we succeed here, we gain powerful allies. If we fail, humanity faces the main Harbinger force alone. 3 hours later, Jake led his small fleet toward the approaching probe. The alien scout was a dark mass of shifting energy, roughly the size of a city block. As they watched, it extended tendrils toward a nearby asteroid and completely drained it of all matter and energy. Contact in 10 minutes, Lisa reported from her position at the Discovery's navigation station. The probe is definitely scanning us, but it doesn't seem to consider us a threat. Tony monitored the quantum interference systems. All generators are ready, Captain. But remember, we only get one shot at this. If the interference fails, that thing will absorb our ships and everything in them. Jake gave the order to begin the attack. The 4 human ships spread out in a diamond formation around the probe. Their quantum drives began pulsing in a carefully calculated pattern, creating zones of space where normal physics became unstable. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The probe continued its steady approach toward Mars, ignoring the small human vessels. Then Tony's sensors detected something amazing. Captain, the interference is working. The probe's energy absorption is failing and the dead zones we're creating. Jake could see the effect on his screen. Where the quantum pulses intersected, the probe's dark energy field flickered and became unstable. Parts of its structure began to collapse as it lost the ability to maintain its cohesion. But the probe adapted quickly. It began to pulse with brighter energy, trying to overcome the interference. Tendrils of destructive force lashed out at the human ships. Evasive maneuvers, Jake ordered. The Discovery spun away from a tendril that would have drained all their power in seconds. One of the fighter ships wasn't fast enough. The probe's energy tendril caught it and began to pull it in. But instead of being absorbed, something unexpected happened. The fighter's quantum drive overloaded and created a massive interference burst that sent shockwaves through the probe's entire structure. The overload is disrupting its core systems, Dr. Foster called out excitedly. Captain, if we can cause a controlled overload of our own quantum drives, we might be able to damage it seriously. Jake made a decision that went against every safety protocol he knew. All ships prepare for synchronized quantum overload. Set your drives to cascade failure mode. Lisa looked at him with wide eyes. Captain, that could destroy us along with the probe. Then we better get the timing right, Jake replied grimly. The 4 ships moved into tight formation around the now struggling probe. At Jake's signal, they triggered their quantum drives to overload simultaneously. The resulting energy burst created a massive interference field that completely surrounded the alien scout. For a moment, Jake thought they had been destroyed. Every system on the Discovery went dead, and the ship tumbled helplessly through space. Then emergency power kicked in, and he could see the results of their desperate gambit. The Harbinger probe was dissolving. Its dark energy structure was breaking apart as it lost the ability to hold itself together. Within minutes, nothing remained but scattered particles drifting through space. Did we really just destroy a void Harbinger scout? Tony asked in amazement. Dr. Foster was already analyzing the readings from the encounter. Not destroyed, but forced to abandon its physical form. The interference patterns disrupted its energy coherence completely. Admiral Parker's voice came through the communication system. Outstanding work, Captain Morrison. You've just proved that human technology can fight these things. But Jake knew the real test was yet to come. High Chancellor Velnara had promised to monitor the encounter. Within hours, they received a message from Nexus Prime. The Chancellor's crystal form appeared on their screen. Captain Morrison, the Hegemony Council has witnessed your victory over the Harbinger Scout. Your species has demonstrated capabilities that complement our own technology in ways we did not expect. Jake felt relief wash over him. Does this mean the Hegemony will support an alliance? The Council has voted to authorize military cooperation between humanity and the Zephyrian Hegemony, the Chancellor replied. But this is only the beginning. The main Harbinger force is still approaching, and they will be far more dangerous than a single scout. Dr. Foster looked at her long-range sensors. Captain, I'm detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Multiple contacts, much larger than the scout probe. Jake realized that their victory had been just the first test. The real battle was about to begin, and this time they wouldn't be facing it alone. Humanity had earned its place as allies of the galactic community, but now they had to prove they could help defend it. The screen showed dozens of dark shapes moving through space toward Earth. The Harbinger advance force had arrived, and the fate of both civilizations would be decided in the coming battle.